I buy a lot of knives and knife blades from Frost or Mora. You can see the label there. In Sweden, they're very good metal. This one happens to be a bimetal blade, laminated steel, a harder steel in the center. And the cheeks of the blade are a softer steel. It's a really good company, really good metal. One issue I do have though is when I receive them, the grind from the factory I think is a little too steep of a bevel. The angle is a little too steep, and if you look really close at this, let's see if you can see, there's some tarnish there for my fingers, but there's also, I'm not sure if you can really see it, I'll get a photograph of it before I start. There is, the edge of the blade tends to turn over if I use it hard right away. I think that the reason for that is because of the angle of the bevel. So what I often do, I didn't do here, but I'm going to do now, is when I get the blade, I will change the angle slightly, and I'll make it a little bit of a convex grind just on a stone, and that cures that problem of being a little too acute and delicate of an angle. And then you still get the really high quality blade, and it's still very, very sharp, plenty sharp enough. So let's do that. So to start off with, use actually the finer side of this combination oil stone. This is a very inexpensive, like Norton oil stone. Sometimes they call them Indian or India stones. And I'm going to use that just to, in the very beginning, just to take off some material, start to change the angle. And like I said, I'm going to make more of a convex grind. So I'm going to try to take off as little material as possible. And this will just start us off. A little oil on there. Hopefully I won't need to do too much with this stone. So I just find the existing bevel angle and then I tip it up ever so slightly from that. And I take it down the curve of the blade. That part is hard. That's the hardest part to maintain your angle on, the curve. Do your best. There's some gadgets and some tricks you can use. I just do it by hand carefully. Put the oil back up there. So, let's see what we've got here. Looks like I could actually back down a little bit, although that seems pretty good. This is, at this point, it's going to look pretty rough because it's such a coarse stone. I'm going to do a little bit on the other side. I always like to go back and forth, so I don't like to count the strokes. So I just do it by kind of feel. And I'm barely tipping it up. So again, just establishing at this point it looks like a micro bevel. We're going to take care of that. We're going to, with the finer stones, we're going to work it into the rest of the bevel there, which I'm going to switch to now. Make sure to get all the oil off, because I'm going to switch to a water stone. These are Japanese water stones, which I prefer with anything flat. So a knife, maybe an axe. I use them on hatchets and stuff, and woodworking tools like flat chisels, plane blades, things like that. My gouges that I use for wood carving, I do sometimes use the Japanese water stones, but they wear through really quickly. Good Arkansas stones are very expensive. I haven't been able to afford the really nice ones yet, but I have a few small ones that I do use for the finer sharpening. So, got a lot of water here. Make sure the oil's gone from my fingers. It's a good idea to keep these soaking if you're going to use them a lot. I don't use them so often, and I found that when I kept the water in the container it would leak. So I just rinse them really well right before I use them and keep putting water over and over. So now is where I'm going to start on the bevel that exists, tip it up a little bit, and as I go I'm actually going to lay it back down again. So it's going to curve. And I watch my fingers because it's still pretty sharp. So you can start to see it coming across now, blending in the rest of the bevel. A convex bevel is a little harder to sharpen, but it's much stronger. That arc, those two arcs coming together, are much stronger probably than any other bevel you're going to use. And this is only going to be very, very slightly convex, so it's not too difficult to do. So this part will take some time. Concentrating right now on the straight part to make sure I get it all, especially right up against the handle, which is easy to kind of miss. And then I'll work my way back out to the curve. If I had the stones attached firmly to my work surface, I could use two hands on the blade, but the place where I have a clamp to do that is not suited well for filming. If it was attached, I would definitely, and I might be able to do that a little bit in this direction, I would have one hand on the blade to steady it. I've done this enough that I can kind of compensate for that. And get away with using just one hand. Keep it wet. The water and the oil both serve the same purpose of kind of cleaning away, rinsing away the metal that gets cut off by the stone. It will clog it up, and then the stone won't cut very well after that. This waterstone is also a combination. This is the coarser side. It's probably like 1,000 or 2,000, I forget. And the other side, when we get there, it's closer to 4,000. I've forgotten the exact. I might be off there. It's been a long time since I bought these. But any of those numbers would suffice. The tip is always tricky. I like to move over the angled part, the curved part, so where I'm putting the pressure starts here, and with each stroke it moves down even just a little bit, or else you'll end up with one little flat spot and then another little flat spot next to another little flat spot. That's what you don't want. Let's see what we have so far. Not too bad. We're getting there. Because this is a bit tedious, I'll do some of this off camera. I'm going to do exactly what I've been doing so far. So I'm where I want to be with this grit. It's evenly sharp all across. You can see it's getting pretty well polished. A little dirty from the stone. I did have to come to the very point here and do a little very fine work to get that to be robust. The tip obviously is vulnerable to breakage, so I had to pay particular attention to getting that reinforced with the convex grind. I feel pretty good about it. So I'm going to move on to this to the finer stone. This one's quite fine. I've forgotten the grit number, but I can get this in a strop, and I can get a knife shaving sharp. This one does, you can see, it does tend to fill up quick. That darkness there is the metal rubbing off because it's so fine. It fills up fast. And the stone's a little worn. I'll move this closer. In the middle, so it tends to cut more on the outside. Just something eventually I'll have to fix on the stone, but the ends here a little flatter. Yeah, that's much better. Now my bevel is convex at this point, so if I just lay this on here, it's not actually touching the edge anymore, so I definitely have to tip it up a little bit. If you tip it up too much, you'll know, because it'll actually cut into the stone. You don't want that, but you want to be very close to that. Clean that out. Oop, yeah, see, I sliced into the stone. Well, I did it a couple times. You don't want to do that. I actually picked up, it probably Won't hurt things too much. It is to be avoided. It'll actually dull the stone a little bit. It'll probably make the rest of my work take a little longer. And yeah, I'd be very mindful. Not bad. This area too, right here, needs extra attention. Actually, I have to tip it up a little bit so the rest of the blade doesn't touch much. That's better. I don't know whether you can see that. But. So we do the same thing with the other grits. I'm rocking it ever so slightly. And again, this tip here needs extra attention. Looks pretty good. Do a little to the other side, then we'll kind of test it out. Give it a really close inspection. Oh, yeah, careful. Rocking it ever so slightly. Probably a little more attention to that area real quick. It looks good. Feels good. One thing to do, which you won't be able to see on, I don't think you'll be able to see on the camera, is you hold it at the right angle to the light and look along the edge. If you see any shiny bits that are actually along the, like the, what should be the edge, they represent a flattened area. Because this knife was already pretty sharp, I didn't have to like check for that too often. It wouldn't have been there except for the one spot that was damaged. And I don't see it now either. So it looks pretty good. I'm going to strop it a little bit and we'll test it out. So this is a strop. There's a lot of different kinds of straps, or a lot of ways to make a strop. This one's just a piece of leather, like split grain cowhide, glued to a board, and with jeweler's rouge on it. You don't need the jeweler's rouge, but it makes it work much quicker if you have it. Ray Mears and other bushcraft guys in the field will just use the inside of their belt, the rougher part, which will work and takes many more strokes to get the same results. So I go backwards, and I don't want to tip this too much. But again, this is a convex surface I've created. So as I go, I'm going to pick it up ever so slightly, just a bit. If I pick it up too much, it'll actually make it less sharp. If I leave it too flat, it will never affect the edge. What this does, in theory, is first removes any burr, the little wire burr you sometimes get, which I already taken off with a stone. And even after that, it just smooths out the little marks from the stone. The stone is made up of lots of sharp little teeth, basically, and this will smooth them out and make it even sharper. I did some more stropping off camera. Do final little bit here. At this point it's very sharp, so watch your fingers. And let's see. I don't know how well you can see this, but I can probably get it to shave here. Yeah. So, that's a sharp edge right there. I'll take a picture of it. I noticed that it's not a perfect mirror finish. Certainly serviceable at this point. And the more I strop it as I go, the more of a mirror finish I'll get. So that's what I do with a new Mora blade to adjust for the acuteness of the bevel, and this will be much more robust. So thanks for watching.